What's up, everybody? I'm recording this intro from my car. You know, sometimes you just got to get her done. You just got to stop whatever you're doing and accomplish the goal that you need to get done. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm recording this intro from the front seat of my car because nothing is going to stop me from putting out this podcast. Today, I have a special episode for you. Vintage and Stuff is back, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode. Today, we get into the world of vintage clothing NFTs. I have the infamous Defunct on the show. Defunct was a staple and is still a staple in the vintage game. Been doing it for 10 years, has a blog and a forum that people have been connecting on for years and years and years, puts out tons of valuable information on there. So check out Defunct. And, you know, to my knowledge, he was the first, but actually he was the second person to put out a vintage clothing, vintage t-shirt NFT. What is an NFT? Well, non-fungible token. You probably have heard about it by now. I think I've touched on it on the show, but it's all the rage and everyone's talking about it. So get up on it. NFT, non-fungible token, assets you can buy virtually, hold in your crypto wallet. They're backed by Ethereum. It's a very interesting concept, an interesting thing that's going on right now in the world. So check it out. We get into how he created his backstory in vintage and all that good stuff. As always, if you want to support me, get on the Patreon. We've been, pretty active on the Discord group, which is everyone talking to each other on there. Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You can support the show, and I appreciate it. Also, check out the new mustache. What do you guys think? Kind of digging it. Let me know in the comments. Follow along, like this video. Without further ado, let's get into the episode with Defunct.
We got vintage clothing by the rack, yeah. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'ma run it back. We got vintage clothing by the rack. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'll have some of that.
Jimmy, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
You are an OG in this game. A lot of people out there probably have been to your website at one point or another. Your articles still to this day have killer SEO for certain topics, and they pop up very often. And that website, for people listening, is Defunct. And you guys were sort of one of the first to really, in my opinion, I mean, let me know if this is accurate, but you're one of the first to really kind of blog and write about vintage t-shirts.
Yeah, I can't really think of anyone else who was doing it regularly. At the time when I started, there was a massive amount of just general t-shirt blogs. I remember doing an article about there was 200 or so, but they were just covering standard t-shirts. And I think we were the only ones that started doing vintage, specifically vintage. I started around, was it 2006 or 2007? Okay. And then things really took off when we opened the forum, because then everyone just started chatting in the forum, and it was before the days of Facebook, and it wasn't as fragmented. And so the forum is a great resource too.
Yeah. So what were you doing before you started this website, and what was your involvement in vintage, and how did you get into it, and then what made you start the site?
So 1999 to 2004, I owned a bar called NASA in Toronto on Queen Street West.
Okay.
And that was it was kind of part bar, part nightclub, and it was also a nostalgia project. We had it was a space age futuristic theme to it. So we had old Atari set up, and we had games from the 80s. We had a Vectrex there. We had posters from movies and stuff. And then every night, we were open 7 days a week, and there was a DJ spinning. So that was where I was at. But the club business kind of, you have almost like a 5-year window, and we were starting to trend downward. And it was around that time I'd already messed around on eBay in '99 to actually raise money to enter that business, to enter the
Yeah.
bar business. But I started to just kind of poke around and see what other kind of stuff was out there, and I noticed a bunch of guys online that were like having a blast selling vintage teas, and like I just thought it was like the next nostalgia project for me.
That's awesome. It's very funny you mentioned that 5-year window with bars. It's so true. And like if you could outlast that, and some people do, but it's tough. And it very is there. It is a timeline. And when you went into your bar business, did you have an idea of how that worked?
Man, when you first go in there, you think it's gonna last forever. Like the first like 3 or 4 years, we were doing so well, and then it's just like, yeah, it kind of just started to fizzle out really quickly. Um, I'd worked at a couple of places before. I came over from Industry Nightclub, which was like kind of a legendary nightclub in the '90s in Toronto. That lasted about 4 or 5 years as well. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just like you have that that clock is ticking when you're in that business.
Yeah, it's
The
tough,
was,
man.
was like such a great experience. We ended up selling on the way out, so we didn't. It's not like we had to shut the doors. We sold the place and like just kind of moved on to me and my partners just kind of moved on to new professions, and I chose to do vintage T-shirts.
That's awesome. So, I guess then you started in the business and you hopped on eBay and you were selling teas. This is like you said, what, 2004, 2005?
Yeah, 2000. It's almost, yeah. Around this time in 2004, I registered the domain, came up with the name, and like, yeah, it was obviously at that time it was mostly through eBay. I wasn't like running sales through the site, but the site was there to support
Yeah.
sales at the time and help with the branding and stuff like that. Yeah, so I just started in on it, and like couple years later, I was doing better and better and better, and finding dead stock stuff, and like, yeah, I mean, the rest is history.
So can you give us some examples of what was hot back in the first couple of years of selling?
It was initially like rock teas were the thing, like Judas Priest, Motley Crue, all that stuff. Iron Maiden, of course, it's like the gold standard for vintage teas forever. Even today, they're still so hot. We started to do really well with hip hop, and we started to curate like a collection of hip hop. I think we were like among the only ones doing that, like kind of like we had a special section of our eBay store at the time, and like you click on a thing, it would be all hip hop teas, and we were kind of like, we weren't just like waiting for them to come to us. We were like going out and trying to find them. We were doing a lot of picking online and stuff like that. So, yeah, stuff just kind of grew from there. And like,
and when you talk about the hip hop selection back then, you were probably grabbing strictly 80s hip hop, or was it you were coming into the 90s at that point?
Barely, like maybe like very early Snoop stuff, but yeah, '90s hadn't come around like at all. Like it wasn't a thing yet. So yeah, it was like the '80s stuff, like the Run DMC, the like Young MC was another one that was like kind of one of those flagship teas that everyone wanted. A lot of Eric B and Rakim, that kind of stuff. Like I listened to that music growing up, so it was like I was just like out there searching for it and looking for it online as well.
That's awesome. So did you keep anything? Do you have your own personal teas? Do you have stashes left?
A few, but you know what? Like now that I'm going through the website and like seeing all the stuff I used to have, I'm like, why did I sell that? Like I don't even have an Eric B and Rakim shirt that we kind of like ended up selling. We found a small like dead stock amount of those, and like wrote 30 or 40, and I didn't even keep one for myself.
30 or 40 of Eric B and Rakim?
Yeah. Yeah, we were really lucky with that one.
Wow. So tell me about some digs, man. Like, did you ever go physically to go do some digs?
Oh, you mean like out on the, not like electronically, like not through eBay and not digging?
Yeah, like did you ever go to any American cities and actually like find stores that had rap teas?
No, man. I stayed local. Like originally I had a really awesome thrift route that I would do every day. I'd ride my bike through the city. And there used to be a place, a Goodwill that was like by the pound. I don't know if you remember this. It was like, I think it was like Church and Richmond area.
Okay.
And it was basically like picking. Like they would just come out, dump stuff on a table, and it was like you buy it by the pound. And like I had a ton of success there for like a year. It was like having a rag house kind of in my neighborhood.
That's sick.
Yeah, and then they closed it down, and I was like, no.
And yeah, Toronto has nothing now like that.
Yeah, I think they moved it to Scarborough, but I don't know. I've never actually made it out there.
I've never heard of any like bins, they call it, in Toronto. Man, maybe there is.
Yeah, not anymore. I think that was the last one, and that was like, I think it closed in 2005, 2006.
Yeah, I know Vancouver doesn't have any either. We had somebody who tried to do a private one, but it didn't really work out because they weren't. The key to those bins or those spots like that is that they rotate the stock fast. They put it out, people get to pick it, and then they bail it and ditch it. But the one that opened up here, like the guy kept it in the bins forever, so you couldn't find new enough stock on a regular basis.
Stale, yeah, yeah. There was people constantly coming around and changing it like every 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so it was like so awesome. But yeah, it closed and it broke my heart.
So those early days of Defunct website, you said the forum was really popping. Like that kind of got people on there, and that was like the building the community.
Yeah, yeah. Like we had, it was a huge job to moderate it too. Like I was answering. I would invite people to ask questions and post stuff and ask. There was a section we had called "What's It Worth," and people would just come in and like post a picture of a t-shirt and ask about it. And yeah, it was actually like moderating comments. It took a lot of time. I was, but I learned a lot too because people were presenting good questions, and then I would go and dig and try to figure it out. And some of the times I was wrong, and in fact, I've looked back a few times and been like, "Oh yeah, that wasn't entirely accurate." But that's how you learn, right? Like
totally.
Yeah. And
that's interesting point because like there wasn't as much there was no references.
Yeah, exactly.
Back then, you couldn't find it. You had to kind of like actually go out and study the piece or figure it out from like a real hands-on perspective, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had nothing to go on. Like there was no one else who like looked at a tag and like screenshotted and told you where it was from or what timelines it was, right? It was just like we had to kind of like use the shirts, the dates on the shirts and all that kind of information to kind of piece it together.
Yeah. And that's it's interesting to me in the way that, you look at where the community's at now, and like the community's growing. It's had this crazy bubble year of like activity and new things are happening.
I know, it's amazing.
It is. But it took what you guys had started in that community probably back then. And like, it's all these things that happen throughout the timeline of our business to have got the community to a place where it could have had this year. You know what I mean? Like education, the knowledge, the people, and all these different things that kind of have accumulated to give it what it is now. So it's just good to like recognize all these things that helped it get there from 15 years ago.
Yeah. Like you got to like sort of look back to the bricklayers and that. And we actually recently relaunched the site. It's live again. There's a few bugs we're working out still, but we're back in action. I've got a bunch of articles planned and stuff like that, so it's super exciting. We did the dry rot challenge. I know I watched a bunch of your videos where you were trying to solve it. So we offered $1,000. I think it was like 3 weeks ago, and there hasn't been a single entry.
Okay, so that was on my notes to talk about. So, there's lots of info out there now about dry rot. I posted a couple of videos, but the best talk about it was Wax and Threads, basically on Chris's talk. So if you want to go to Chris's Instagram, he chatted about the whole thing. But it was basically you and him who did the original studies and kind of like really tried to figure out what it was, right?
And I'll give him credit for that. When I looked back in the forum recently, it was him that said, "Has anyone ever had a T-shirt disintegrate in your hands?" And I answered him, "Oh, yeah, the black ones." And he was like, "Yeah." So it was him that came up with that term, dry rot. He's the OG. I got to give him full respect for that. And all the research was him. Like he's the man in that department.
That's rad. Yeah, we had a great chat. There's a podcast with me and him.
Yeah, I saw it.
So, and that's again, like that would have been such a mystery in the early days of figuring that out. Why are these rotting? Finally figuring out that it's only black teas and doing all the tests that you guys did. So you guys really broke it down. Check out the Defunct website for the kind of the scientific breakdown of dry rot. Cause I referred to it when I did my video on it, and I quoted you guys on it.
Yeah, I think you linked it too.
And I think it's super cool. So, but the big kicker here is that you guys have put out a $1,000 prize reward for anybody who can fix dry rot, because as it stands, you can prevent it, but you can't fix it.
Yeah, you can prevent it from getting worse, and or from yeah, you can't fix it. We don't think you can. There've been a bunch of people online saying that you can. I don't know if you've seen this, but I had one dude who said that he had a chemist that had come up with a formula for figuring this out, and he wasn't prepared to share it, but he knows how to.
Yeah, he's like $1,000. I want $1 million.
Well, that's the thing. They don't even have to reveal how they do it, so there's nothing to lose, right? Like,
you just have to be like, this one was fixed. Here you go.
Fixed it. I mean, the final test is like Derek's going to send a full dry rot T-shirt, and if they can pull it off and send it back and it's fine, then you get $1,000, no questions asked. If you don't want to share the secret, then you don't have to.
That's crazy. So
here we go.
Get your submissions in, guys. $1,000, and like you're helping the community, and you're making $1,000.
Yeah, but there hasn't been any to date. So
I talked to somebody, I can't even remember who it was. I would give you credit if I remembered. Who said that there's some kind of silicone type spray for some kind of other application that you can spray on the shirt, so it actually adds like another bonding layer to the fabric. So yeah, which it doesn't fix the fabric, because we probably all can agree that there's no way to fix those fibers. Once the fibers disintegrate, they're gone. It's kind of like, it's how do you strengthen it enough to make it wearable again. So it was some sort of spray that gives it strength. I didn't even get the name of the spray.
We talked about that, Derek and I, and the shirt's got to come back and be wearable. It can't be like this stiff piece of like cardboard, You can't have
totally.
To walk like this. Like, so it seems to me if you're going to spray something on it, it might make it rigid, or it's probably not going to last after a few washes, right?
Yeah. Again, to be tested. We'll see. So
yeah,
looking forward to some submissions though, so we can see what's going on here, and if anyone's actually out there trying stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to solve it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to the relaunch of the site and to see what you guys come up with.
It's live now.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm gonna check it out. So I guess because you started that site 15 years ago, was it the same site until you just relaunched now?
No, it's gone through a bunch of changes. In 2011, we turned it into a multi-vendor marketplace. I don't know if you remember that.
I vaguely do. And how'd that run for you?
It was like the Etsy for vintage tees, we kind of said it. But it did well for the first couple of years. There was some growth. There was lots of people selling. Then it kind of plateaued, and then it just started to slowly decline. I think that was like representative of like sort of Instagram and people selling in different ways, and like it was also a very tough thing to pull off. I mean, it was basically a one-man show. I mean, I was doing it all on my own, and it's a big job to run that, right? Like,
it's a huge job. When you look at big tech companies who have these vendor marketplaces, they have massive teams and massive amounts of money.
Yeah, there was no money behind it. I was kind of relying on our search engine traffic, which was really strong at the time. Around the time when we opened, there was a huge shift by Google, and they did a few algo changes, and like it kind of tanked our rankings. So it kind of really hurt us because I was really relying on that organic traffic, right?
Yeah. It's funny. We had that's how we grew F as in Frank in the early days as well, because we were big in the snapback game. So we were crushing it on snapback SEO, right? And we did all the things, probably same stuff you did. We did, you name your pictures properly, blog a lot, lots of keywords in your blogs, constantly putting out new stuff. There's like all these different things. It was a little more like, pardon?
The meta title, the description, incoming links, anchor text, all that stuff.
Yeah. And like swapping stories with other websites. So you got like spider links going out. And it used to be more understandable, but now I haven't even looked at the Google algorithm or how that all works now, because I think it's a lot more tricky, and they try to they make it so it's so much harder to to actually get yourself up there. Like they don't want
Yeah.
people to get themselves up there. They want to say that we'll rank you the way we think it should be. Not there's nothing you can do to help it. I don't know. It's trickier now.
I've still got a decent idea of how it's going to all play out with the new site. Yeah, it can still be done. And like we've got, because we've been on the web since 2005 and we've got so many incoming links, we're in a really good position to pull it off and start getting some traffic again.
And I think in reality, what is the most important is quality content, which you always have. It's like you can do all this BS behind the scenes, but if people come there and they don't stay there for quality content, it's worthless, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And especially now with people, the way the community is and everyone's sharing stuff and everyone's out there and trying to learn and educate each other. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys will do great. I'm stoked for it.
Yeah, and it's kind of missing. Like there's no one else really. Everyone's busy on Instagram and like all these other platforms, and like we're kind of losing touch with this, like a website that has all this information, right? Like, Instagram is hard to kind of search, right?
A real like place where it lives. That's something that is social media is great for certain things, but nothing lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's disposable. Yeah.
It's disposable. It's people do all this amazing content. Like there's lives happening with great content. And
it's gone. Like it's 2 minutes later.
Yeah, even YouTube now, the way the algorithm works, like you put out a video, it gets great traction, and then the traction dies. People can go search it and they'll find it later, but they kind of let that traction die. Instagram, everything after it's that first day is like dead,
Yeah.
And like a website where things just live and you can be searched and be referred to is it's a good resource.
Yeah, that's what we're working toward, to kind of tie everything together and bring all the social elements together and, start having that stuff searchable, right? Because you go on Instagram and you want to learn about screen stars, you're probably going to have a difficult time finding out about it, right? You'll see lots of pictures and stuff like that, but you're not going to learn too much, right?
That's true. I didn't even think of that. It's not searchable at all. The only thing you can search on Instagram is someone's name. You can't search info at all.
Do a hashtag search, but it's just,
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into topic that everyone wants to hear about, NFTs. NFTs. This to me, I've only been on the NFT radar for maybe a month, which is
okay. And you know way more than I do. I'm at 2 weeks.
How did I? Yeah, and look at you. You've put out the first NFT tokened T-shirt, which, yeah. So how did I even hear about NFTs? Jeez, I think my one of my employees they were talking about the NBA Top Shot.
Yeah.
This is more likened to like a trading card platform, and that's how I kind of got introduced to it. Then I went down the rabbit hole. It took me about a week to kind of wrap my head around even comprehending this and realizing that there's something here. Obviously, I'm forward thinking, so I'm like, okay, I just have to like get my head into the game here. But you guys got on it quick, and you launched a vintage NFT. You want to explain what you did?
Well, first, a little disclaimer. Like I said, I only started 2 weeks ago, so like this, I have not wrapped my head around it at all. All I can really do is tell you how I got the T-shirt up there,
okay,
and the digital hoops I had to jump through. I also have to give a shout out to my buddy Matt from T-shirt Time Machine. I don't know if are you buddies with him, or you know Matt?
I don't think we're buddies, but I believe I know him. Yeah,
he's a fellow Ontario vintage T-shirt guy, and about 2 weeks ago, he just came to me on Facebook chat and was like, "Dude, we have to see if this applies to like vintage tees." And he's been doing it for a couple months, maybe even 3 months, and he is still sort of like very humble about it and says he doesn't really understand the whole thing. Like it takes a long time for this to set in because it's such the concept is so out there. So when he said that, he kind of inspired me to just start like thinking about it. And he just said, if you want to learn about it, the crash course is just go and try to list something, because that's what he did. He listed a soccer jersey. So that was great advice. I just went, okay, I'm going to take this Run DMC shirt, this like infamous Run DMC shirt, and I'm just going to like attempt to get it up there, get it on the blockchain. And yeah, I did it. It was like, it took a while. I felt like, Matt and I joked around that it's like, for like 90-year-old men trying to figure out eBay for the first time. It's like the eBay listing from hell. Like there's so much stuff to like try to figure out for the first time, and platforms to sign up. But yeah, like about a week dabbling every day for about an hour, I managed to pull it off.
Okay, so from what I understand, I'm going to break this down for the listeners. You had a Run DMC 1980. It's a My Adidas tee, like from their Adidas line, right? What year?
Yeah. I think it's 86 or 87.
Okay. And you have listed it as a redeemable NFT. So you buy the NFT, which on what website did you drop it on?
Mintable.
So it's on Mintable. It's NFT, and then you also receive the T-shirt. Now, when you say redeem the token for the T-shirt, it's like when that token sells, you're sending that person the T-shirt.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the thing that I don't understand, is why anyone would want that without the T-shirt. But that's the concept that we have to figure out, right? Like, because that's happening. Like people are trading things and not getting anything physical back, right?
Yeah. So something that confused me when we talked, because when I first posted, okay, this is interesting concept. When I first posted, I shared your post about it, right? And I got a lot of people hitting me going like, why would someone buy a picture of a T-shirt? And I go like, no, and I didn't know actually if you got the T-shirt at the beginning too until you told me. And I was telling everyone, no, you get the T-shirt. But when you say the token is redeemable, because an NFT is non-fungible token is the term for it. So it's a token, which, we haven't even broke this down for people who haven't got into this yet, is an NFT is a non-fungible token. It lives on the blockchain. You own them. So like it lives in your wallet like a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And whenever you exchange it, so if it's a piece of art or it's a moment, a video clip or whatever it is, you own it. It's encrypted with the blockchain, so it can't be faked. And then you sell it to somebody, and the blockchain is the proof of purchase. It's the proof of authenticity. It tracks
digital provenance.
Exactly. And it allows it to be tracked between all the different buyers throughout its lifespan.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
You said that way better than I would have. Like,
I've thought about this a lot. So when you said that the token is redeemable for the T-shirt, like they buy the NFT, they own the token, it's in their wallet. Do they have to give you the token to get the T-shirt, or do they just say, send me the T-shirt?
Once they pay the $13,000 it is, or whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure how it all works once it's up, because I've never sold anything, right? So this is all like I'm navigating through like uncharted territory here. Like I assume that like, you know, the funds would be transferred to me or my account, and then it would just be like an eBay transaction. I package it up, always saying I'm going to do FedEx and insure it. The thing that we try to do is like, and I could look back on this 5 years from now and think that this was totally stupid the way I was thinking about it, but we included a file within it that has like super high res photos of the T-shirts, so that whoever gets it and whoever it's transferred to can make sure that it's the same one, right? So we were thinking along the lines of like, can this thing be used in a physical sense and tied to the blockchain to keep it authentic and make sure that T-shirt is the exact one?
Okay, I get it. So sometimes people can buy a picture and then they get the different shirt in a weird faking backdoor sense. So you could be like, is that file part of the NFT? Like, will it be
Yes.
will it live in your wallet?
It lives in there, and whoever purchases it gets unlocked. So only they can see it.
Okay, interesting. So that again ups the level of authentication, essentially, right?
And that's what we are trying to do, to try to really like keep it authentic and like somehow tie the physical T-shirt to that blockchain.
Okay. So
but again,
this is why I wanted to get you on here, man. We got to understand the concepts.
Matrix.
Make
5 years from now, again, I could be like, that was a really dumb thing. I mean, like I said, I'm only 2 weeks into it, but I just wanted to get into it and like list something. And that was like what Matt said to do, just dive in. And this is like the best education you're going to get. It's going to cost me about $80 and, you know, a week of my time. And like, here I am. A
yeah.
little
I
bit
want
more.
I want to I want to talk more about the process too. So first of all, this shirt that you use, Run DMC, iconic shirt, iconic hip hop group, one of the earliest like real breakout mainstream kind of rap artists.
Mhm.
But you kind of told the story on the NFT. I read through it, but you want to tell the story of like why you picked this shirt, what's the relevance with this shirt, and like it had sold previously on other thing, and like just talk about the shirt a bit.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember Vintage Vantage. Do you remember
Yeah,
these
I do.
guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like more pioneers that were like just having, like I said earlier, like I noticed there were a bunch of people that were having a blast online selling vintage T-shirts, and like these were one of the guys that inspired me. And they were among the first people to like list hip hop tees. I think they had this one up and they priced it at $13,000, and like it kind of became like a showpiece for them. It was like their item that was like creating all this buzz. People were always talking about it, and people wanted to get their hands on it. And back then, it was like, you know, really hard to get your hands on something like that because they weren't, you know, like these days they pop up like once a year, once every 6 months you'll see one pop up. But back then it was like the only one, and it was like that for a while. So they kind of like almost like made this T-shirt this like super rare thing, and I don't think they ever really had any intention of selling it. Like they just wanted to keep it there and for people to ooh and ah, you know.
Yeah.
So eventually they closed their doors, and then that shirt got transferred to Heather from Skippy Haha, who I'm sure you've seen on Instagram. She put it on her Etsy, and then I snapped it up, and then I listed that shirt on the marketplace when we opened in 2011. So it was the first shirt that was listed on the Defunct marketplace. So it kind of has a little bit of a flair there too as well. So it's got this history of sort of a provenance of like, you know, first it inspired a bunch of people. I know there's people that I've talked to in the past that were just like, yeah, that shirt, and the dude that was selling that shirt was like why I got into this business. Like, kind of like turned people on to hip hop tees, and it made me. That's one of the reasons why I started curating hip hop in my early days.
That's so rad, and that's explained very well. And I think again that goes back to what I said before of like this tee helped build rap tees to what it is right now, which is it's at an all-time peaking point. You know what I mean? It is one of it's probably the most sought after category. Definitely one of the most valuable categories. It's and I think one of the categories that has legs, you know, one of the categories that really has true legs that will stand the test of time because it represents such an amazing part of American music history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And those 80s ones were so much more rare, I think, because like it wasn't as mainstream, right? Like, you know, I always have a special place in my heart for the 80s ones just because like they're just, you know, they're way more rare. Like once you get into the 2000s ones, I mean, they were totally mass producing them at that point, right?
Yeah, like the Tupac bootleg rap tee. Everyone wants them, but they're very common. Like they're the most common rap tees out there. You know, I have like a Humpty Dance one that I'm like never gonna see this one again. You know what I mean?
Is it the one with where he has the raised nose?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the 3D nose.
It's like a cartoon drawing of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's another one that like I let go and I wish I hadn't.
Yeah, I still have that stashed away, and it's like a real kind of weirdly shaped 80s tee, you know, like but yeah, so that's cool. So then break it down about the whole process here. So, you know, we think about vintage t-shirts listing. Everyone lists. Everyone who listens to this podcast is probably vintage sellers of some degree, and you know, we think about listing like going on eBay, taking a picture, putting the description. It's up there. Someone can buy it. So what is the process like of actually, because making an NFT, they call it minting an NFT or mining an NFT?
Minting, yeah.
Minting. Now, it's not as simple from what I understand because it takes energy. So someone brought to my attention, I'll get into that after. You tell us your process of minting this NFT.
As best as I can. So the first thing I had to do was find a reputable cryptocurrency broker, because like this crypto world is like rife with fraud. Like it's apparently super I haven't been ripped off. I just started in it, but like people are just constantly warning me, like, be careful out there because you can get ripped off.
So
you need to,
what did you go with, and what ones were you warned against?
the site that I went with is called Newton. So that's for us Canadians. I'm not sure if it's in the US, but you just have to find someone that's reputable, that's a cryptocurrency broker. And yeah, like that whole process of like signing up an account with them was like so many hoops. I had to show, like, I had to take a picture of like ID, with a picture of myself with ID in my hand, like a driver's license. And then the screen kept saying, smile, don't smile, smile, don't smile. Like it was taking pictures and pictures, pictures, pictures. Eventually it got a picture of me like that. And then it said saving. And I was like, what? That's anyway, then it had to be verified by an actual human, because it was like, obviously they weren't getting the photos that they wanted. So that took some time. And then once you get it set up on there and you jump through all those hoops, then you got to try to get your money, your Canadian money or your US money into it so that you can actually buy Ethereum, right? Which is the base credit for an NFT. So I tried 2 credit cards. Both of them got declined immediately. And even if you call the credit card company and say, no, I'm actually trying to do these transactions, they just say, no, we just don't deal in crypto. Like they won't do it, even if you say, I want you to do it.
Were you able to did you have to e-transfer in?
Yes. So then I e-transferred in, and then that got put on hold. Yeah. So like 6 hours later, I was like, why hasn't it gone through? It's supposed to go through in 30 minutes. So then like you got to call your bank, and even your bank might not know that sometimes the bank is putting it on hold and sometimes it's Interact. So I called the bank, and lo and behold, it was both of them. So the bank passed me Interact, and then they had a security person come in and record me saying, yes, I am trying to do this transaction. Please let it go through. So yeah, that was like the first sort of experience I was having with it.
It's so interesting, this topic on its own, because I drove by a billboard today in Vancouver that said, don't get caught red-handed, like research before you get caught with investment fraud or something. And I think it was referring to like crypto, right? Because people, because it's untracked right now, and the government is hesitant, the banks are hesitant to get involved. But we're like, okay, crypto's been around. Yes, it's getting buzzed right now, but like you guys got to figure this out. It's been around for years. I talked to one of my financial guys, and I'm like, so how do I claim? Because I've been in it for a minute, man. I got in 2.5 years ago when that first kind of buzz was all going crazy, and even this guy who's like a certified accountant, he's like, I still have to learn more about how we declare it.
Yeah, it's like such a gray area. Like no one knows how it's going to work, right?
Exactly. And you mentioned that Ethereum is the base credit for NFTs, which basically means like all NFTs, to my knowledge, are being traded with Ethereum cryptocurrency.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Okay, so continue on your process of getting this done.
So where were we? I passed the hoops of Newton and being on getting on a cryptocurrency, and I finally got the money there. So then everything was kind of smooth sailing for a little bit. I just transferred Canadian dollars to Ethereum, which I love the name of that. I feel like it should be like the currency in Total Recall or something. So futuristic.
You have like this key like plug into like this thing, and it like transfers money over or something.
Yeah. Even the logo for it is like so badass. So yeah, that is a very volatile cryptocurrency, because like I put money in there and got it into Ethereum, and then like the next day I was up $100 for it just sitting there. Like, and then and then I was like, I should just cash out. Then a day later I was down $100. So it's like bouncing all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got the money. I got the Ethereum. So then you need to get that into your wallet. So there's another there's a Google sort of plugin called MetaMask. Then you have to connect that to your cryptocurrency broker, and then transfer the money. That's a relatively easy once you kind of figure it out. There's a code that you use between the two of them, and it just happens like instantly. So you've got the money in your crypto wallet.
The code's like this long, right?
Yeah, it's a snippet of code. It's like, it's a one-time thing. You got to do it quickly, but
that's why people lose their crypto, because they have these wallets or whatever that have these codes, and they're like, I got it 10 years ago. I don't remember my like 50-digit code. And
yeah.
I can't access my wallet or something.
And now I'm out $20 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I can't remember the password, and I've only got 2 attempts left.
So you're in there. You got the money's finally in the wallet.
So then you got to choose which platform you're going to do the minting. So I didn't dig around too much. My buddy Matt did it on Rarible, and I did it on Mintable. The reason I chose Mintable was because it looked like Rarible, from what Matt said, that there was an option to use more than one photo for some reason. So I was like, well, for a listing like this, I mean, we're so used to seeing like 1 million photos, I decided to go with Mintable. The way I went was like pretty intense, because it's a one-shot deal. Like once you hit submit, you can't edit it because it's blockchain. They want it to be exactly the way, preserve it exactly the way it was, right? So I can't go back in and edit anything, right? So I spent a day doing photos again, which I haven't done in a long time, and like having nightmares about going back to listing stuff on eBay. And then got it up. Hadn't even had my wife proofread my text on there. She's a student of journalism, so I was just like, okay, everything is perfect. I'm ready to go. And finally, like, just hit submit and was like, yes, correct. Now we see it. I mean,
this takes, from what I understand, like you can pay more to have it quickly minted, or you can wait a longer period of time and it's slower. Is that correct?
This didn't give me that option. I haven't heard about that. But the price to list it changes depending on Ethereum gas rates. And I originally thought that maybe that tied into real world gas rate, but it doesn't. It's just sort of the listing fees, and they fluctuate. It has something to do with like the miners who write it to the blockchain and how busy they are. And like, so the more people listing, the price actually goes up. So some days
that's so interesting. So when you submit it, you throw it out there, it tells you a price. That's based on how many it's based on supply and demand of the people who can actually do it.
Yeah.
And then there's actually a person who has to go in and do the work to code that product for you, or code that piece of art or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's possible. That's something that I'm not fully sure of, but this gas price fluctuates. So I could have listed it a day later and only paid $40. So it's really kind of bizarre. Like it can fluctuate really, really.
Does the price of the minting matter what your retail price will be, or no?
Like, does it like if the price of my shirt is more expensive, is it more to mint it?
Yeah.
Another good question, because I've only listed one thing, right? So
you didn't even try to see, like throwing a random.
No, because I was just like, I just got to do this, you know. I was just
yeah. So that's an unanswered question. Can somebody please in the comments like give us the answer to that one? Does it fluctuate with your selling price? Because then you got to think, can you go out and make a bunch of NFTs that you sell for $5, or is it the gas price going to outprice you, and isn't it not going to work? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see things listed on there for like relatively cheap, and it doesn't make sense to me that they would pay $80 to list something for $5, right? Like, so there has to be something there that's based on your price. I'm not sure, but we'll find out in the comments.
So another interesting thing, somebody hit me up and sent me an article about how there's an environmental impact to NFTs. Now, like crypto, I didn't know about this. I'm sure you didn't know about this, but this with crypto, from what I understand, when crypto is mined, it's computers that are creating this cryptocurrency, and it takes a lot of energy and processing power to create the cryptocurrency. I guess, yeah, I guess they made it like that because it resembles like mining for gold.
Gold.
Like you can't, you know, it takes actual physical energy, people, money to go mine gold, just like it takes power and people's energy and time to mine Bitcoin. So that's kind of how the value is created to a degree, I suppose. Now, I believe this is the same with NFTs, where they have to put time and energy into these things. And I guess it's a lot of energy. I have to read into it more, but from what I understand, it's a lot of energy that goes into minting a NFT.
Yeah, so I might have impacted the environment with my Run DMC shirt. We'll have to find out.
I'm not saying that to like, you know, be like, you shouldn't have done that. Obviously, the beginning of it's just, I just want to like cover all aspects of these NFTs. And I think it's interesting that it's probably more of like everyone wants to like nitpick here and there of like what's going on, but I don't really understand it and how much energy it actually takes. It's just something to talk about where, yeah, I don't know how much energy it takes. And I guess, did it work for you instantly, or how long did the process take before it was up?
Like, yeah, like you mentioned before, I'm not, it happened right away. It was just like an eBay listing. Some like balloons popped up and said, congratulations, you've just minted an item. And it was like available right away.
And it was available right away.
Yeah, I could search it right away, and it's syndicated on the other platform. So on Rarible, I was able to right away see it, which is very cool.
So you said you put it on Mintable, and then it's syndicated to Rarible automatically.
So I think it just goes across, and everyone attached to the blockchain is on the marketplace. It appears there.
Because there's other sites, like I've looked into OpenSea is another NFT site.
It's there too, yeah.
It's there too.
Yeah, it's on. I think they're all on the blockchain. They're all attached to it. So it's syndicated across the entire thing, which is awesome. So if you were, you know, it would be like doing one listing and being across Etsy and Depop.
That's okay. That's another huge selling point for this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because that, like you said, that's like doing an eBay listing, and it goes to Etsy, it goes to Facebook Marketplace, it goes anywhere.
Anyone can buy it from any of the platforms. So that's that's kind of cool. Okay. If I have that correctly.
We're getting into it. We're getting new information here. That is totally news to me. Another question I have. So with art NFTs and all these different NFTs, there is a backdoor percentage commission for reselling. Did you know about this? Royalty.
You can set a royalty, yeah.
Did you set a royalty?
No, I didn't. Partially just because I couldn't find a spot on the listing. I didn't research it too much. But yeah, I just wanted to get it up. Like it was like, I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I was doing it. I was just like, you know what? If someone purchases this from me, I'm happy enough to make history in that way. And like, I don't need a royalty from future sales. It's all right.
Okay, cool.
So yes, you can do that. You can keep making money from something in the future. But I think that would make more sense in the art world, where people might be, you know, reselling it a lot quicker. The digital art world anyway, right?
I think so. I think it has different applications, and I think it can be applied to our business in some way. We'll see how that plays out. But again, it would have to be something so rare that you're willing to resell it with the person who is going to move it on is willing to give you that cutback. And then the buyer, we have to get to a point where the buyer is demanding that token with the item. You know what I mean? Yeah. Otherwise, that person can just detach the token from the item and sell it off and just forget about it, right?
It's so like, I'm still just trying to wrap my head around it. One guy, after you posted, contacted me and said, did I burn the t-shirt? Like, did I physically destroy the t-shirt to make this happen? So that's an interesting question. I don't know if that's if that's a thing, that you only want it to reside digitally.
Yeah, that's it. The lifespan is there. If you want this piece, it's only online. Physically, it's gone. That's crazy. Well, you heard about the guys that burned the Banksy?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it's kind of that concept.
Yeah.
Wild. So, yeah, super wild. And congrats for being the first. Congrats.
I don't know if I'm the first, though. I don't know if I'm the first.
Okay, well, I did do a shout out and asked if anybody was first I didn't get any answers.
Yeah, like I don't want to be the guy that pops into this thing 2 weeks with 2 week experience and say I did it first, right? It's possible. There was another vintage T-shirt up at the time. It's a Robin Williams shirt. It wasn't redeemable and it wasn't really for sale. Like I think the guy just wanted to showcase it and make it special. I actually attempted to buy it from him. He said it's not for sale.
So it was up as an NFT, but not for sale.
Yeah, he didn't want to. He didn't want to lose the physical T-shirt.
That's interesting too. So you can mint an NFT and have it not for sale.
Well, it was for sale, but he didn't want to take. He didn't want the physical shirt to go with it. So he would have sold me, I guess what you're saying, a picture of the shirt.
He was just trying to sell the picture of the Robin Williams shirt.
You know, he didn't really have an exact explanation of what he was trying to do. He said he was just messing around and put it up there because it's his favorite shirt.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, regardless if you're the first, the second, the third, the fifth, whatever, you're the first one I saw.
First notable one, maybe.
Yeah, and I knew this was coming. Like me and Kirby have talked about it on the show, and I knew this was coming. I've been thinking about it a lot. Me and Jesse, when we met up in Calgary recently, we were talking about it, and I think it's super cool, and it's fitting that you being defunct and always putting out this cool information for everyone. Now you're putting out this information about minting a T-shirt NFT. So
yeah, I'm working on a blog post too to try to go over the steps that I talked about here. Yeah, I mean it's we'll see where it leads. Maybe it leads nowhere. Who knows, right?
Maybe, but I highly doubt that. I think it's going to lead somewhere, man. And this is going to be a new thing. Do you have any predictions then? Like, you say you don't really understand where it's going to go, but do you have any thoughts about the future of this?
Well, I definitely, like we talked about earlier, I like the idea of it being syndicated across a bunch of platforms. That is so convenient for guys like you and me that have sold things across Etsy and Depop and are all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if the shirt actually sells at some point for 13,000, I think it'll be an indication that we're going in the right direction. But it could take a few years before we figure it out.
I think so.
It's a concept that I don't understand at all, even after diving into it, and I think it's going to take a while for society in general to get their head around it too, right?
Oh, for sure. I still mention this to certain friends, and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" It's a very new concept. It is blowing up in the media, but if you just hear about it, catch wind of it, it takes time to really wrap your head around this. I think the younger generation, I'm assuming you're about my age. I'm 40. Younger generation can kind of grasp this concept differently because they're playing Fortnite, they're playing Roblox, they're playing these games where they're buying digital assets already,
Makes sense to them, yeah.
And it makes sense to them. And for me, I was never a gamer, I was never into that, but I'm just inquisitive enough to go down the rabbit hole and figure it out, as of course you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great conversation to have, and are we going in that direction? We're going to find out.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, well, we're gonna end it there. Do you have any? You want to put anybody on? I like to ask that at the end of the podcast. You want to give anybody a shout out? Anybody in Toronto you want to mention? Or
yeah, and like I said, you could have a great time with Matt from from T-shirt Time Machine on here, because he's into the financial stuff as well.
Okay,
he's got some crazy stories about vintage. He was selling dead stock headshot tees for 4 years before I even showed up.
Wow.
He's kind of one of those guys that flew under the radar, just because he's been busy selling T-shirts. He's not like me or you messing around with blogs and stuff like that. He's just all he does is get to work, and it's you guys would get along awesome.
Okay.
And then obviously shout out to Derek from Wax and Threads. He actually kind of was part of my inspiration for coming back and kind of getting back into it. He kind of dude, we need you back in here, and he kind of reintroduced me into the wild, I guess you could say, and started explaining stuff to me. And he was the $6,000 Genie T-shirt and all this stuff. So big shout to him, and you too, the hardest working man in vintage. You're the James Brown of vintage.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yesterday I tuned into you doing a Twitch, and then 2 hours ago you were back on Instagram Live. You you spend a lot of time on live. You're like, it's like the Truman Show or the
I'm
Truman
trying to
Show.
I'm trying to hit them where they live, man.
Amazing,
Um,
dude.
but yeah, thank you. That's a
A lot
hustle.
of coffee, or what's going on? How
A
do
lot
you
of
do it?
coffee, yeah. But I take my time. I take my time off. I spend the weekends with my kids and the evenings, and I tune out, which I think is important. You can be
Yeah,
tuned in, but you still got to tune out, man.
but you love what you do, so it's not work, right? It's like
Exactly.
that's
And if I'm
you
doing
love.
like the Twitch thing, I'm like, that's another thing that was brought to me because I have young staff. They're like, you know, they're into it because they're into watching gamers, and now musicians are on there and all these people are on there, and they're like, just get on there, try it out. And I'm like, fuck, if I'm gonna sort this palette anyway, and now I can do it on Twitch, and maybe I'll bring more people into the fold of what I'm doing. And I think it's like a lot easier to make money on Twitch if you get the people watching. Like there's a money system there. And I'm like, I'm doing this work anyway, and I get to interact and have fun. Why the fuck not? Try it out.
Yeah. I think you're the first one to do it, right? I saw someone in the chat said, I was thinking of doing this, and you're like, haha, beat you to it. You gotta be quicker.
Okay, so that's another. I'm claiming that this is we're talking about first here. I'm claiming that first to sort vintage on Twitch live. I'm gonna be doing that a bunch. I'll put my link actually in the description here for anyone who wants to go follow on Twitch.
And one more question for you.
Sure.
Do you still have any of those invisible t-shirts in stock?
Yeah, dude, we do. We have a couple left from a really good dead stock haul back in the day, in the early days. We're running
Did
low.
you actually ever sell any of them?
I believe Jesse and is the guy Nick, his buddy who was helping him at the time. I believe they did. And Nick, because Nick was doing the listings at that time and he was modeling, and then with the invisible t-shirt, they had like a fan club, and they would get all these emails, and like the people that were like super fans to like
Whoa.
what do you call it? Like fetish degree. Like they were into
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah.
There's a whole podcast right there, the invisible t-shirt.
The invisible t-shirt. Oh man. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, in the early days, Jesse and Nick, they would just shoot themselves with their shirt off, put up the invisible t-shirt listing, and people would run it up. See,
And they were
now I'm thinking invisible t-shirt NFT, and it's all the wheels are turning.
There's something there.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on, especially short notice. Super stoked to have you, and I think that was a great topic we covered, and I'm excited for the future of Defunct. So everyone go check out the Defunct website. There's so much stuff on there to learn. Like if you want to crash course through vintage t-shirt history and so much to learn on there, go check out Defunct for sure.
Awesome, man. Cheers. Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure, dude. Talk soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you appreciated this episode. Hope you learned something. I definitely did. A lot of tidbits about NFTs that I did not know. I think we all should be learning about this interesting new concept because you're going to be seeing it more. It's important to understand. And, or maybe it's not. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you just want to keep doing what you're doing. But, my inquisitive brain likes to learn new things. And this was an interesting one for me. Follow along, like this channel. Click the bell, do all that stuff. Share this with your friends. I appreciate it. More episodes coming soon. I've kind of been really busy and not putting out a lot of content because I've been crushing on a lot of lives, doing the virtual flea. You guys have seen me. I've been busy. But that's not to say I'm not going to keep it going. Lots more good stuff coming soon. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.